Hello everyone and welcome back to Torchlight 2. Last time we finished the first section of the game, and now let's head out into the temple steps. If you do notice in combat that the frame rate of the game drops a little, unfortunately the game is coded for single core processors, so I have 6 cores in mine. Only one of these ever gets used. It's not a multi-core application, which obviously limits the power because a multi-core CPU is designed to spread the load so you don't have super high CPU frequencies. Instead, you basically would like your programs to be able to utilize multiple cores. This game doesn't, so it really impacts performance a little bit, which means in intense combat sequences with lots of animations and such, I might dip below 30 FPS, even though the game is not... shouldn't be that demanding. Okay. This is not really the temple steps yet, of course. This is the Path of the Honored Dead, but it's more of a small side area, which is... you get these quite a lot in the game. The auto-attacking, I feel, works a little nicer than it did in the game before. It doesn't forget your targets as much anymore. Okay, more Frenzy Mastery sounds good. And I'm still going to Strength, 2 Dexterity, 1 Vitality. So the skeletons finally decided to grace us with their presence. There's one really cool thing which I'll show you in, well, you might have already seen it if you were paying attention, but I'll show you that in a moment, which is a really cool change they made to the attribute requirement system in the game. There's a side dungeon up there, which I definitely want to take. First, I kind of want to explore down here. Okay. And since we're playing on normal, not very hard, as we did in Torchlight 1, it should mean that my pet will be able to do more damage and die less often. Okay. Concerning requirements, we can see that quite well here on the fortified Stormbeorn suits. Boots, not suits. With the exception of, I think, maybe a handful of legendary items, so ones we will never see in this LP, any item has 2 ways you can fulfill the requirement. It's either a straight up level requirement, which is obviously one you will eventually always be able to fulfill. The alternative is a stat requirement. So the way this is, or the reason this is really cool, in the first game we sometimes found items which were sort of interesting to us, which had cool abilities. For example, we would find, say, gloves that increased our fire damage by 10%, and our primary damage skill would be a fire skill, just to give an example. But then these gloves would require an investment of 40 points in magic.
I need your help.
You must be the human the other Astarians are speaking of. I'm glad to have met you. I've been sent on a quest by Grand Regent Eldraine to recover the Scroll of Anum Erec stored in a vault in the corrupted crypt here. Unfortunately, the Stormbeorn have already entered the crypt and I've been unable to get past them. Can I ask you to attempt to retrieve the scroll? I will wait here in the Path of the Honored Dead for your return. Should you succeed, I will see that I can do to provide you with some equipment more fitting a hero of your stature. Sounds good. Let's enter the corrupted crypt. So that would mean that in Torchlight 1, a lot of the items you find are kind of useless to you, because if you're playing as a melee destroyer, for example, you would never ever put points into magic. That would be completely pointless, if you pardon the pun. So you would never be able to use those gloves, for example. In this game, however, if I find an item that is really cool, but I don't want to spec the points into using it, I can then quite simply wait until I have the level requirement, which means if you reverse that argument, if you find a really cool item that fits your character, so it has the correct stats basically, you will be able to use that quite quickly. The way it will usually work is that the level requirement is a lot harder to fulfill than the stat requirement. So for example, I'm speccing mostly strength and dexterity, and a lot of the really good claw weapons in the game will require strength or dexterity. And that means that I might find a unique claw weapon which has a level requirement of say 50, but because I'm actually speccing into dexterity and strength, I might be able to use it at level 20. And I'm not exaggerating here, this is the sort of this really is a reasonable example. You can really use things a lot earlier than the level requirement says you can. I believe at level 40 I was using level 81 claw weapons. So really, really cool. And it makes finding unique items more fun, because it's a lot rarer that you find an item that you're never ever going to be able to use. As I said, there are some legendary items which were added in a later patch, which do not have a... well, all of them have a level requirement, but the level requirement is level 101, max level is 100, so you're never going to be able to fill that. Which means in order to use them you need the stats, but they really are the exception, not the general rule. You might have seen a moment ago, when I forgot to mention it, a chest that had sort of ghostly chains around it, and when I approached some ghost spawns, occurred. Let me see, yeah, I'm keeping that skill point for later. These are fairly common in parts of the game, and it's exactly like you would expect. The chest is basically locked until you kill the ghosts. And very often enemies that are pretending to lie dead on the ground aren't actually dead. It's not very different from the Draugr in Skyrim, which would very often pretend to be corpses, but then actually wake up. However, in Skyrim it was actually quite easy to tell which Draugr woke up and which didn't. It's not so easy in this one, I feel. The one thing about the frenzy, it also increases my movement speed. As you can see, I'm moving faster with it than without it. And that can actually get quite, well, not really annoying, but it can get out of control. Because there's different things that a Berserker can do to increase his movement speed. And of course there's equipment which increases movement speed as well. So I might... occasionally, when the frenzy bar is full, I might click past enemies because I'm moving so ridiculously fast. Okay, that's this level done. Was it tab? Was it M? M to switch the map. Okay, I'm going to keep it on the side there, so you can always see it. Now let's make it to the next level. The next level is called Fallen Guardian. This indicates that it's a level that has a boss enemy in it. And this unspent skill point, I'm keeping it until level 7, basically. Because right now there's nothing I really want. I really want to spec points into. Okay, these are some standard undead. Skeleton General is also not the boss. Ouch. What we see back there, the guy with the huge sword, that's the boss. And some enemies in this game have sort of a thing which you might know or which might be familiar to you from Diablo 3, where some enemies have a special attribute, such as the vile Nashers we just fought. They had the noxious attribute, which basically means they leave behind a poison puddle when they die. And there's a few of these attributes which are in the game. Usually they are only found on enemies that are associated with a boss. In this case, Demon Foe. He was a standard boss, one of the random generated ones, as opposed to the Lost Guardian. Was it called? No, the Forgotten... I don't know. The big guy, he was a special boss. You could see his name was different and such. And he was hard-coded, not randomly generated. Again, also something you might notice from Diablo 3. And because people seem to make that mistake a lot, both games were in development pretty much simultaneously, so neither of them copied from the other. They were released within a few months of each other, so unless you want to accuse one of the companies of industrial espionage, they really are separately developed games. Okay, let's go back to the surface. We found the Scroll of Anum Irek. Okay, so Miamin.
My thanks.
She has a nice rare claw for us, a punch blade of demolishing. Could also go for the pet tag, but I prefer the weapon.
You have become more skillful.
As I level up, also some of my items get identified. I'm not quite certain what the exact mechanics of that are, but quick cut, which you probably didn't really notice. Okay, I can spec one more point in Frenzy Mastery now. And just as before, improve Strength, Dexterity, Vitality. Maybe because I didn't do it before, I'll just show you what the attributes do. Strength obviously increases weapon damage, also increases my critical strike damage. Dexterity increases my critical hit chance, my dodge chance, and my fumble recovery, which is basically sometimes your hits don't hit properly, they fumble, and they do less damage. And increasing dexterity means that damage penalty gets reduced. Focus increases my mana and all my elemental damage, and also increases my chance to execute, which means which is something you might have already seen. It's when I carry two similar weapons, in this case two fist weapons, two claws. Then I have a, in this case, 10.8% chance of hitting with both of them simultaneously, which increases obviously the damage. Otherwise it's kind of switching between using the left hand one and the right hand one. If I execute, I use both of them in a single hit, doing more damage. And Vitality increases health, armor, and the chance to block with shields. I don't have a shield, so that last one is pointless. The reason to spec Vitality is only because of the increase to armor. Anything else is kind of pointless. Okay, I can use these pants now, and I think Vitality and Mana, I will use the boots. Shoulders, which are also better. These not so much. The helmet I can't use yet. Need to wait till level 9, but then they might be worth considering. And the rest is kind of pointless, so I'm just dishing that over to my pet. Right? No, this one's also nice. Yeah. And we do have a little more space in our inventory than we did in Torchlight 1. And the pet still has the functionality it did in the first game, so we can send it back to town to sell for us and such. It has some more things it can do, which I'll show you at a later point when I actually need it. They also changed a little bit how potions work. In Torchlight 1 it was already the case that potions didn't heal you instantly, they gave you a really quick regeneration for a short amount of time, to avoid basically people abusing potions. So you couldn't survive really difficult content just by bringing high level potions. You simply because they only gave you regen, they didn't heal you instantly. Okay. Activating that grave gave us a boss, who is now dead, and also a mysterious bow. Interesting. Mimic with a Skull of Endo. I'll show you those in just a bit, when I've got some peace and quiet. Like now. So, identifying now just happens by right-clicking, but it still uses up identify scrolls, which we can find in our consumables inventory, where we can also find fish and health potions, all the consumables basically. So the skull things, there's tons of them, they are socketing items, just basically unique ones. In this case they give me +5 to physical armor if I put them into armor or trinkets, which is jewelry, and +6 physical damage if I put them in weapons. My weapons don't really have sockets, and so I'll keep that one for later. And now let me identify the bow. Death's Bite. Knockback, electric armor, knockback, health stolen hit, magic find, increased range, poison damage, chance to shock and chance to stun. Not bad at all. Obviously I'm not going to use it because I'm not really designed to use bows. I could, of course, if I have the if I fill the requirements, I can equip that weapon. I just think that I'm better off using my claws. Okay, this is another one of these guarded chests where I need to kill the spirits before I can open them. In return, of course, they give slightly better loot than, I guess, your average chests. Let me know in the comments, by the way, would you prefer me to skip exploration, or would you prefer to see the entire area being farmed, I guess? Either way is fine with me. If I do, in fact, explore everything and do all the side quests, I am probably going to move up to veteran difficulty, because that means I'll have more experience and I'll probably be a little ahead of my, I guess, ahead of my main quest in terms of level. So yeah, let me know. I'm usually a bit of a completionist in these things, but I could turn that off temporarily, if that's what you want. So let me know. The comment section down below is meant to be used, not just admired and looked at. And now we can enter the temple steps. So yeah, let's do that. Loading times are still fairly long. As I said, the game is not necessarily very well coded. It's definitely not particularly optimized. I was talking earlier about fumble chances. If you see purple damage numbers, which you might on occasion, that means the attack was fumbled and has dealt less damage than it ordinarily would have. Which, since I'm a character speccing high dexterity, will not affect me as much, but you will still see it. Okay. And the really cool thing is, occasionally enemies explode when I kill them. I don't think it has much to do with how much damage I deal to them, just on occasion. They don't just die, they explode in a bloody mess of organs and blood, I guess. Which is nice. And if you're about to complain about video games making people violent, no. Just no. Ooh, a poison ring. Say most of the rings I will find at this point are probably going to be fairly useless, but the default rings basically improve my armor against certain elements slightly. Okay, I can equip this quite quickly, increases my strength, which is probably better. Also take that, actually. Ooh, Ghastly set. I will probably not be able to complete the set, but still more gold found and chance to freeze. Oh, might as well. Oh, a promising fishing hole. I think I'll do the fishing next time. See you then.